Welcome to The Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for today's episode. In this episode, I'm stepping away from the Journey into Motherhood series that we've been exploring for the last few episodes, and instead looking towards the start of the new school year. So over here in Australia, Western Australia, we're about to start a new school year next Monday for most of the kids here. And with this becomes, it's always a time of uncertainty for parents and for children often when children are starting school, whether that's for the first time or starting a new school, starting high school, starting university, going into school. At the moment, of course, we're doing all of this with even more uncertainty hanging over our head. So this time last year, episode 12, I was joined by guest Cindy Malcolm, and she joined me to talk about schooling and uncertainty in different ways that we can try and help children as they transition into the school year, particularly with the added layers of complexity that goes around the COVID period that we're experiencing. So we did cover that last year. So as I said, that was episode 12. If you are a parent and your children are looking at starting school this year, or they're starting a new school or transitioning into a different kind of stage of that schooling, or you're just feeling uncomfortable with what that may look or feel like this year, please do head on back to that episode 12 and have a listen. Cindy is absolutely fantastic, and she comes with such a wealth of knowledge around child development and ways that we can support our children. So it's a really great episode. So because we've covered that, and I think because a lot of people at the moment are talking about what could school look like this year, and with our experiences with homeschooling during lockdown, it's started to have people think, well, maybe I'd like to homeschool my children. But with that, there's been quite a few, I guess there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questioning around what homeschool can look and feel like. So with that in mind, I thought it would be a good idea to just take a quick break from our Journey into Motherhood series and just take a look at what homeschooling may look like. As we talk about homeschooling today, I'm joined by yet another amazing woman. So I'm joined today by Paris. So she is the mum to two boys. She has a background in childcare, and some may say that she's somewhat insane because she homeschooled her boys for about 5 years. So, and of course I am only joking. So there are such amazing people out there who are homeschooling their children. And the purpose of today is to try and, I guess, demystify that a little bit and go through what some of those commonly asked questions are, some of the myths that surround homeschooling, and really try and, if you are thinking about homeschooling, let you know what some of the realities are and decrease some of the fear that goes with that. So, Paris, I'm so grateful that you've joined me today to talk about homeschooling.
Oh, that's great. This is really exciting being here too. On a podcast.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm really looking forward to picking your brains.
Oh, okay.
So you homeschooled your boys for around 5 years.
Yes, that's right.
So did they they started primary school?
They did. They actually started kindy pre-kindy really early because they were in the language development centre program, and they started. They're probably 3, but they're turning 4 in May.
Yeah.
And so they're pretty young. I actually had to take them just for half days for the first semester because they were just too tired to get through the full day. And the teachers in charge were fully on board on that, so that was really good. And that was great. We were there for till the end of year 1, and then moved into mainstream school for year 2.
That's great because, so my eldest, she's an April baby, so she was the same. She was 3 when she started kindy, and it's so young.
It is, yeah.
And so there were a lot of kids who were really struggling, but there was no flexibility with that. It was tough luck. You're here for the full day, so you're here for the full day.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult when they're so little.
Yeah, well, this is a program to help encourage their language skills.
Yeah.
And it was very small numbers in class. I think it was only up to 10. But they had a teacher as well as a teacher's assistant. Yeah. And also on board you could have the other specialties that came in to help encourage with our language skills. It was a great little environment. I mean, I'm really behind that program. That was great. It used to be up to grade 4, but because they want to offer more to the younger, really young.
Early intervention.
Yeah. that's what they had to cut down
Yeah.
for years, which is unfortunate because I think they would have done a lot better having that small class and support.
And having that for a bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they went year 2, they started mainstream school, is that correct?
Did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they were still in mainstream primary school for the first few years of primary?
Yes, they were up to grade 5.
Yeah.
That's when I pulled them out.
So grade 5, so I will also share as well. So I homeschooled one of my children, my middle child. I homeschooled him for 3 years. And one of the things that I guess that I hear a lot or heard a lot was when people are talking about year 5, year 6, year 7 going into high school, and thinking about when we were at primary school compared to what they're learning now, going, I don't think I could do year 5 math anymore. So and that's and I've been quite fortunate that I've been able to help my kids throughout high school with their maths. But there's a few people who are like, I don't think I could do year 5, year 6 maths. So were there fears like that for you with pulling them out, and how would you go teaching them these concepts when things have changed a lot since we were at school?
I think I didn't really look that far ahead to start being fearful.
Yeah.
I think I'm just there for now, and this is what I can offer them. And I found great books. I think at that time I was following Prime Maths, which is similar to Singapore Maths.
Yeah.
And so I was able to cope with that. By the time I got to high school, my husband took over that position.
Yeah.
Because he was actually math.
He's got a math brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also later I sourced out a tutor. So there's all those options.
Yeah.
And it is up to you on what you find and what's suitable for your kids.
So when you were starting homeschooling, or you've homeschooled for 5 years, you've got lots of experience in this space. What are some of the fears that you had around homeschooling?
The thing is just to see, are they on track? In the so-called, what's the norm?
Yeah.
Of that, what their year level is. I think that kind of messes with your mind a bit, but you really got to focus on what's good for them and build up from there, and you will see improvements, especially with the one-on-one.
Yeah.
And also you don't need to waste so much time like that happens in schools. It does.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to a homeschool mum who I happened to bump into in Coles just before Christmas, and she's just started the homeschool journey, and she was saying that she was quite concerned because her daughter is behind in maths.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, she's exactly where she is right now in maths. That's one of the things with homeschool. There is no behind, because it is tailored for the child who's sitting in front of you, rather than the 30 children that are sitting in front of you. So as you're saying, you can do things so much faster because you're only working with one child or 2 children in your case. You're not having to try and explain things for 30 different kids.
That's right. And with maths, it is building block. And you need to start if you have to go to the beginning again, then there you go to build up the foundation for it, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I was fortunate that the boys were really kind of clicked on with maths. It's just the English skills. The spelling.
Oh, see, this is really tricky. I can't spell to save myself. I can't. And when I went to school, it was kind of you don't need to spell because we read for meaning rather than read for spelling. So there was no emphasis on spelling when I was at school. And then now I still can't spell. And I don't need to because I've got spell check on my computer, and so I'll be typing something and I'll get a wiggly red line underneath my word. I think, okay, I need to change that. So I'll try and change. No, the hard part is no suggestion comes up. So I'm like, okay, I'll try again. Still no suggestion. I'll try again. That's okay. I'll just think of a different word that means the same thing. So yeah, I struggled with that as well with my kids because I can't teach you that because I'm really struggling with some of these language conventions that weren't important when I was at school.
Yeah, I found that the boys kind of learnt by practicing.
Yeah.
But that's through just the computer.
Yeah.
Like they did use the many tools that you can use to search the word up and use it or find an alternative word.
Yeah.
And then But I kept doing that, and if it ended up being the same word, sometimes there's just certain words you just get stuck on.
Yeah.
But eventually it sinks in. So yeah, it's all practice.
It is. That's exactly it is. It's just practice. So a couple of, I guess, some of the things that I hear when people are worried, or because everybody's got an opinion, don't they? You know, you take your kids out to the shops and, oh, why aren't you at school today? Are you sick? No, they're homeschooled. Oh, really? Homeschooled? And the biggest kind of thing that I hear is around the lack of social connection for homeschool kids.
Yeah, but I think it depends on how you go about your homeschooling. I found that, you know, when you reached out in the community, you find other homeschoolers. You find that events have been organised, and you know, mostly it's open to everyone.
Yeah.
Although you find out as the children get older that you kind of
there's ones that you gravitate to more than others.
Yeah, you find a certain tribe. That's what I kind of say.
Yeah.
And you had to kind of in the end try to say, oh no, we can't come at this stage.
Yeah.
You have to put that in a way where it will fit in your program.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to be out all the time.
And that's exactly what we found as well. Was people going, oh well, you know, there's no social interaction. How will they develop social skills? Well, actually, so when I'm homeschooling, we're out all the time at different events, different activities, different social groups. But it also means that he wasn't just socialising with kids his own age. He was also socialising with children that were younger than him, children that were much older than him, and also adults. So he was learning to adapt his communication style to this huge plethora of different people. So for me, it was as you said, it was opposite of being socially restricted. We're going, there's just not enough hours in the day to go to all of these activities. What's most important here, or where do we think that we're going to enjoy this most or get the most benefit from?
Yeah, exactly. And it does have to tick your boxes in the end. Otherwise, you do go way off the rails.
Yeah. So with that, talking about ticking the boxes, I think that's another one of the fears is around, you know, when people are first starting homeschooling and the moderator visits and making sure that they have ticked all the boxes. So how did you experience the moderators? Or can you tell us what the moderator's role is?
Okay. Well, their role mainly is to guide you on what is needed and give you suggestions. They're supposed to support as well. You probably do come across those that are a bit more old school way of thinking, but they still try their best to work around what you're trying to implement in your family with their education. I think I was a bit scared to begin with, because the lady I had, I think she must have been I don't know if a lot of them have a principal background. They were teachers at one time, but then they become principals, and so it is like seeing the principal. But I don't want to scare you, because I think what I've come along the line trying to tell other families is that show your confidence, show that you have a plan in mind, and even even if it's just the interview, just have on side that you do have a plan and that you have got a bit of a timetable laid out, which is still flexible, so they have confidence in you, and then they basically leave you to it and see you in a year's time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents, when they're going into homeschooling, there's this idea that the moderators are going to judge them, and so you're potentially going to fail. What if I'm not doing well enough? And then, you know, what if they give me a big giant red cross instead of it? And there's that thing that I don't mind failing. You know, as a person, I don't mind if I fail, but if I fail as a parent, then that feels so much harder. So there's this extra pressure, because this is about my child's education, and education is important. This is why we pull them out of school, because we think education is important and school system doesn't work for our child for whatever reason. So well, that's why I pulled my child out anyway. Most parents that I talk to, it's that similar kind of thing.
I did with the boys too, because I eventually found out they are dyslexic.
Yeah.
So that's why they needed more of a one-on-one learning.
It's tricky when they're in a class with 30 other kids and you've got 2 kids who, they learn a different way.
They do.
And they've got additional challenges. So it's really easy for kids to sort of get missed, or for their behaviour to change because they're not able to do what the other kids are doing and things like that. So I think we have a lot of parents who they're really focused on trying to make sure they're doing the right thing for their kids. And what if this moderator comes in and tells them that they're not doing a good job?
Which they can do. But as I said, be prepared. There's also with HEWA, which is Home Education Western Australia.
HEWA.
Yeah, that's right. They have workshop programs that will help with you understanding the curriculum and also going about the programming. I mean, it sounds a bit scary, but it's not. It really isn't. You do find ways on how you can achieve all this without spending a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think, I was really lucky. I had an amazing moderator who wasn't scary at all. But I also went into it with the idea that her role was to support me in doing the best that I could for my child. So rather than feeling like she was going to judge me, I went in as prepared as I could be, but also with a whole list of questions going, well, where else can I go for support? What else can I do? And whether she's just amazing or whether that shifted her perception.
I think it would.
Yeah. And that being prepared. So when we first started homeschooling, it feels really overwhelming. Where do you start?
Exactly. Yeah, well, I started searching, and I came across Down Under homeschooling, or the other way around, homeschooling down under. And she went through how she went about her style of homeschooling, which was very organised. I picked up some of what she did and ran with that for a while, but then I eventually discovered what suits myself and my family. But there are other ways if you want a ready set curriculum with the workbooks that are set with it. There are places where you can go to look for that as well. Depends on what your budget is. It's up to you where you go with it.
Yeah, and I think homeschooling doesn't have to be expensive. It can be as expensive as you kind of want it to be, I guess. And so it depends on your budget. I think it also depends on your child.
Correct. Yeah.
So my child wasn't going to cope with ream after ream of handouts and worksheets. That wasn't going to work for him.
The same as mine.
Yeah. It could be a boy thing. I'm not sure. Actually, no, I don't think my girls would cope with that either. But it's funny because my mum's a teacher, and I think she's a fantastic teacher. I think that the school system isn't necessarily set up to support the way that teachers would like to teach. So she graduated when I was finishing high school, so she hasn't been a teacher. Well, she has been a teacher for that long, but not my entire life. So I saw how she was when she first started teaching, and I saw how she was when I first started homeschooling. And so she looked at the timetable that I had that we'd worked out with my son, and she's going, you've got to do lip blocks, Emma, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to make this. And I just got into such a tailspin because I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. And it was a couple of weeks of me trying to bend myself in a pretzel to do all of these things that you've just got to do before I went, you know what, I pulled him out of school because this didn't work. Why am I trying to replicate that at home?
Exactly.
And I think that that's kind of one of the things that a lot of pitfall that parents can fall into is I need to do at home what they were doing at school. If you're going to do that, why are you doing it at home?
Exactly. Yeah. I probably did start off with the desks.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But then eventually find out, they're either on the couch reading something, or they're outside climbing a tree, but then they're, back again doing the Legos.
Yeah.
Which, it's still for 10-year-olds to follow how to build something. That's all part of it.
It's all T&E. That's all following directions and, all of those things. So, yeah, most definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. You find that there's all rooms in the house that's for learning, and even outside in the nature, which is a big plus.
Did you work with, did you have concepts that you worked with when you were homeschooling?
For a goal, I think it's basically just getting them back on track. So they were behind. That was what the teachers were telling me, that Owen's spelling, she was really concerned by it. And I said, well, this is the first time we're in year 5 now.
Yeah.
It's being brought up.
Yeah.
And I said, well, he's really good. Within a few days, he can do that test because he memorized.
Yeah.
And I think that's how he got away with a lot of it through all the years.
Yeah.
But if they delayed it, and it's a week later, he's like,
it's gone.
No way, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you said before, spelling, you don't necessarily always will get it, but you still got to know the foundations of it. Still.
Yeah.
So he needed more at home, one-on-one time with it, without pressure.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing with school, is the pressure. It was just too much.
And that's probably one of the things with homeschooling versus being in a classroom. So in a classroom, there's so much pressure because we've only got so much time. And yet what's really interesting is that when you homeschool, you can do so much more in so much less time.
Exactly.
And so you actually feel like you've got so much more time.
You do, yeah.
And I think that can be helpful as well when parents are, if they're trying to work out if they can juggle working and homeschooling as well, to know you actually don't need to homeschool your child from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock, Monday to Friday.
No.
It's just not how it works.
No. I found that I've got most of it done in the mornings by lunchtime, and then we might go to the library, or we end up cooking, or whatever that was there on their list to do. But we might end up with sport, things like that.
Yeah.
But still cater to what is needed to be done. Yeah.
So you've mentioned a couple of times, ticking the boxes and catering what needs to be done. Can you share about the curriculum and where people can find that to be able to see the different things for the different ages?
Sure. In the Western Australian Education website, I don't know how, I didn't bring it in front of me, what it's actually called.
That's all right, I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have it all from kindy to year 10.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at the sequence and syllabus. A lot of homeschoolers are kind of looking to that side of things more now, because it's a lot easier to still
achieve.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to get so stuck into the curriculum boxes.
Yeah.
But basically what it says in the home education page is that you just need to prove progress.
Mm-hmm.
And even just a small bit of improvement, that should be achievable.
Yeah.
Especially those that might have a lot of challenges behind them, learning challenges.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the moderator is going to fully understand that this is why we're in this environment.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Or it could be totally different, where you might have a mainstream child without any challenges, and they're able to cope with more of regular learning. Because I know some of the homeschoolers are doing online learning connected to schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another way that works really well for some, especially those children that might be gifted in a sport area or in dance.
Yeah.
And this is the way how they're able to achieve
how they're able to do
those spheres.
Yeah.
But still be able to homeschool, and they're able to work well with that type of style. There's many styles. You will work out what works.
And that's so true. There are so many different styles, and you've just got to find your groove and your child's groove and how you can work together with that. I think that one of the things that I see is people go, okay, well, I've registered for homeschool, so when do they send me all the lessons that I'm going to do? Like, oh yeah, no, they're not going to. So the education department doesn't, as a standard, send you out what you need to teach your child, which I think is great. because it means that you can go and look at the curriculum and go, okay, well, these are the key points that I need to be achieving. But how they achieve that, that's up to us.
That's right.
So we get to make education and learning fun. We get to make it exciting.
That's right. There's another term called project learning.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. You worked that down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know of a close friend that she did with her son as well, and a lot of their projects were like doing up furniture.
Yeah.
And refurnishing it.
Yeah.
And then the end product, which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of project learning.
Yeah, we did. So when we first started, my son picked a country per term. And then so for that country, we would research, we'd research about the country, we'd research about the food, we would cook the food, we'd find out about the artists, and we try to emulate those artists and learn about the artists. So he got to guide that, but everything was really hands-on learning, because that's how he learns.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that was really exciting, because there were things that I would never have looked at because it didn't really interest me. But I got to learn so much as well about different things. And at one point, he turned our living room into an art gallery using a virtual app. So when you shone it at this, then this piece of art kind of appeared in our living room, and all of those things. So really exciting things that I never would have got to learn if I hadn't been homeschooling him for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it can be really exciting. I think people have this idea that homeschooling is going to be, well, I need to stand and shout at my child for 7 hours a day because they're never going to listen to me.
No. But I came across an article once in a homeschooling website, and this lady explained how she saw what happened in her family is that the first 5 weeks, she's the captain of the ship, and it's all running, pretty much her way. But the second half, the other 5 weeks, there's mutiny. And it's like, all right, we did it your way, but now it's our way.
Now it's our turn.
And that works for them.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's about finding what works. And it's funny, so I homeschooled him for 3 years, and then he chose to go back to school, which is fine. He found a fit. But then, so 2020, when we had the term where the kids were all learning from home because of the COVID lockdowns. And so we were doing something, and we spent a day doing some stuff. And my eldest child said, well, when are we going to do some actual schoolwork? And my son, with just venom dripping from him, he goes, no, we did schoolwork today. She just disguises it with fun so you don't realise you're learning. So I was like, he got wise to me. But I think that, that's not a bad thing, that, to disguise learning with fun so you don't realise you're learning. I think I'm probably okay with that.
Yeah, the boys at that time were doing TAFE.
Yeah.
So that went online, which, they don't really like a lot of online learning. But they got through it. But fortunately that was just, a small part of the day in the morning. Yeah. And the rest was their day, so.
Yeah, and again, I think that's one of the things with homeschool is that you can do a small amount in the morning and then you've got the rest of the day to do whatever. Or you can go, all right, well, let's do all day Monday, Tuesday, and half a day Wednesday, and then we've got 4.5 days of just chilling out, and we can go to the beach or whatever because you've got it done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thinking back to the idea of the moderator visit as well, so one of the things that the moderators talk about is finding ways to actually show progress. How did you monitor, or I guess maintain or record what your boys were doing?
I did it a number of ways. The first time, with the first year, I used like an album, a photo album. So I had photos and then explaining where we went, because we ended up going to Geraldton. So on the way through, we learned about some history side of things. There's a great museum up there as well. So we learned a lot about that. And and then I did have some workbooks as well. And then showed her where the progress is and where we're trying to head towards. That seemed to go off okay.
I think that's probably one of the other things as well, is that when you're homeschooling, everything counts.
Yeah,
so all the stuff that we do with our kids normally, things like going to the art gallery or going to museums, going to SciTech, going to Scouts, going to after school sports activities, all of that counts towards meeting those requirements for the curriculum. So things that you're often doing anyway, just write it down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Went to SciTech these 3 times. Went to the art gallery, went to the museum, checked out the Fremantle Museum, whatever it is. That all counts, because if you look, it doesn't matter what it is. Oh, similar to you were saying before, spent time building Lego.
That's right.
Did some cooking. All of that counts for, some of that's viewing, some of it's T&E, some of it's design. It counts as all of those things, and it can count as all of those things as well.
That's right, it does, definitely. You probably have some moderators that might prefer some worksheets. So you either look around how you can still satisfy the moderator, but not necessarily, you might not be the usual child's way of learning, but you do come across some moderators like that. So you just work around on how you can still satisfy the moderator, but still most of the year you're doing the way that the child wants to learn.
Yeah. It's hard, because I always think, the moderator isn't there to judge me. The moderator's there to support me. And so, and like I said, I had an amazing moderator, so I don't know what I would have done if I didn't. But I guess I'd like to be challenging the moderator by saying, how do you think a worksheet's actually going to help in this situation? What are you hoping that the worksheet's going to achieve? Because when I can find out what you're hoping that worksheet's going to achieve, let me show you a different way that I achieved that.
That's right.
And not that our role should be about opening the mind of the moderator, but I think that the better relationship you can have with that moderator, the easier it feels.
Yeah. They're not really there for a long time anyway. So
mine was there for hours. Really? I think she just liked a good chat.
I think the very first time that I got to know my moderator, she probably was there for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
She was there for both of the boys.
Yeah.
But after that, it seemed to be a lot less. She was quite happy.
Yeah.
And then moved on. Maybe because they've got so many more families.
Yeah.
To spread out. I don't think they've really got enough moderators to do this job at the moment.
No, and we are seeing a growing number of homeschoolers, and whether that's just because there's more like homeschool groups on social media, and so we're seeing that. Maybe they've always been around and we just didn't know, or maybe it's that we are actually seeing that growing.
Yeah, well, I think people have, especially over East, have found that they've become more involved in the children's education during COVID. So then they're kind of like, well, I think I rather like continuing on with this. Yeah. Either way, it's a free choice.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think, what we had over here in WA, where we just had that one term or however many weeks of the term, some people sent their kids back earlier than others. People found that really stressful, and sort of the idea of, well, I thought I would like to homeschool, but after what I went through, there's no way I could homeschool my children. And I think it's really important to remember that what we were going through then wasn't homeschooling.
No, it's totally different way of doing things. And because you weren't able to be as free to go out and explore as much. You're more in the home environment. Yeah,
so that's exactly it. Everyone was stuck at home because we couldn't go out. That's sort of the whole point of it. But also you were working to the classroom rules in your house.
Yeah, that's not really.
That's not what homeschool's about.
No.
And trying to do that often while trying to work from home as well, that nobody had ever done before, and and you've got your partner's working from home as well, so you're both trying to work from home and trying to do that while you've got Zoom calls happening that the kids are coming to ask you about algebra. So that wasn't a good representation of what homeschooling can be.
No, but I think you do end up working your way through it. It's like going through anything, any changes. Like we've just moved to a different house, and it's a lot smaller than what we're used to. So you adjust. It has been hard the first 5 or so weeks, 6 weeks over Christmas.
Oh yeah.
But I think we've become quite comfortable now, because we've only got one living room. And, the boys are kind of not used to that.
Yeah, used to their own space.
The last house that we had was pretty much 2 houses in one.
Yeah.
But now it's like, they actually see their parents more.
Yeah.
But they kind of like that, because they said, the house that we had is like the 1970s, and, it's one big living room.
Yeah.
I said, and the beds were just for sleeping in.
Yeah.
You're all in the living room.
Yeah.
You might have had a piano over there or a radio there. I don't know what you did with the 70s.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
before
remember. My time.
I was a kid, so I can't recall it. But
yeah.
It was more family oriented.
Yeah.
Houses then, I think, where you weren't lost in a house.
And for me, that's what homeschool feels like as well, that there's so much more connection.
Yeah, that's right. You do build up a really strong bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's important what you're saying as well, that it feels really, really scary when you're contemplating registering for homeschooling. The fear factor is so high, and I think there's this kind of fear that, well, if I stuff it up, I'm going to ruin my child's entire education.
Yeah.
And that's all going to be on me.
Yeah, but I think that is part of being a parent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is up to you, in a way, to bring up the child with your values and morals, and making sure that they are on par, because it's important. They're your kids.
Yeah.
That's what's important. I mean, with the teacher, I'm sure, they do have a love for teaching and a duty. It's 30 kids.
Yeah, that's it.
Or even more. And it's hard work.
I think that, as you say, we're scared because it's important.
Mm.
And so, but at the same time, what's the worst that can happen? If you give it a go, if you jump and you think, I'm going to give this a go, the worst that happens, homeschooling isn't right for you and your kids go back to school.
Yeah, that's true.
And how many parents can honestly say that during our primary school or high school, whatever it was, we didn't have 1 year with the teacher from hell that was awful and we didn't learn a single thing?
Yeah.
We all still did okay.
Yeah.
So if you decide to homeschool for a term and you suck at it, you're probably not going to ruin your child's entire educational future.
No, and as they grow, they will tell you as well what they want.
Yeah.
And what's best for them. Because I did at one stage in between homeschooling, one of the boys did go to high school, a small high school. He was there for a year. But at the end of the year, he's like, he wants to come back to homeschooling, because he actually did have a hard time at the high school.
Yeah.
I mean, he did okay academically, but it was the bullying that was happening.
Yeah.
So that's where he decided that. So it's like, okay, then come back, and then there's another year at home, and then he's moved into the TAFE pathway.
I think that's one of the other fears as well. So I think a lot of parents are like, okay, well, I can probably homeschool for primary school, but high school, that feels too much.
You can do. I found that I was able to outsource a tutor that catered towards the maths and more English side of things. So that, we're able to get through that. Also, I was like having a husband that, well, he's still my husband. That could get them through that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think, if there's a way, there's always a way.
Most definitely. Also, as you say, you don't have to do it all alone. So there are different homeschool groups that meet up regularly, so they do sort of lessons. There's one close to us where my kids went to an archaeology workshop.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
We didn't actually get to that one, but I remember it being advertised.
Yeah, well, I have 3 children, and 2 that are very close together in age, and my eldest stayed home from school that day to go to the homeschool classes. So, but there are these homeschool groups that meet up, and so there are English classes through those, or sewing classes, or martial arts, or kids sports. So they can still have sports carnivals, and there's homeschool balls. They can still have those. So those things that I think people worry that the kids are going to miss out on, or that they think, well, I don't have the skills in that area. How am I going to do that? There are groups where they do that, or there's tutors available, or it takes a village. There are people in the village who can come and support you with that. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
Definitely.
YouTube, I found YouTube really helpful. So go and Google an English lesson and then find out, okay, they're the concepts that I need to teach. Now let's work out how I can show that to my child.
There's all sorts of ways, and I think it's great when you start meeting other families and you start building a community with one another, with a few of them, and the kids click, and you work on ways might go off to the museum, and most places like the zoo and all that are quite very willing to help out to make up organising a class for them to be a part of. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money as well, so there are ways to go about that.
And then, so I think another one of the fears is that how will they go? So we have this idea that kids go to school and then they go and do an apprenticeship, or they go and do their ATAR and then go into uni, or they go to TAFE, and how will they go if they haven't done year 10 and year 11 and year 12? How will they get into those courses? But your boys have gone to TAFE.
They have, we went through the general education certificates. I think there used to be a Cert 1 and now there's a Cert 2. I'm not sure if they've recently dropped the Cert 1 and just made it a Cert 2, which is equivalent to year 10, and then they're able to follow on the TAFE college courses with the Cert 3 or 4. Is it after 4 they can actually apply to university?
Yeah, that's right.
There's also another pathway that I'm not that familiar with, but I have heard that have a uni ready courses.
Okay.
So especially if you know that you're able to cope, they can go through that way.
Or there's Open University as well, which is another pathway into that.
And if you haven't done necessarily all the NAT plans, you can at least get the year 9 NAT plan done. And that's another way to get easily accepted into. And that's not that hard to get the children to sit down for that period of time. Does it happen in May, I think? In May.
You need to register early for it if you want your kids to do NAPLAN. So they can do the year 3, year 5, year 7 and year 9 NAPLANs while they're homeschooled, but you do need to register for that early. But I can't actually remember when that is.
I think it happened around May. And to register, you probably start registering
now. But I'm thinking it was NAPLAN in May.
May 18th. It was close to the boy's birthday. But I didn't really think of that. But now that I'm thinking, that could have made things a little bit easier again. Because I suggested that to one of my friend's boys, and he's got through fine.
And I think as well, I know a lot of people would sort of balk at the idea of doing NAPLAN, and one of the reasons that they're homeschooling is because they don't want their kids to have to sit those kinds of tests. And I understand the concept around why do you want them to sit NAPLAN. It's like trying to test a goldfish to see how fast they can climb a tree. I understand all of that. I agree with you that it does make it a lot easier for them to get into TAFE.
You don't have to worry about the year 3, 5 or 7, but the year 9, it can make it easier, that's all.
And when you're the person who's setting the test for them, you get to set the tone for that.
Exactly.
So they're not influenced by the teachers who are, and some teachers are amazing and some teachers are really good at going, you know what, this is one test on one day that asks you about, and the results of this don't mean anything. But some teachers are very big on applying pressure. You don't have to do that. You can just let them know that, you don't even have to make a big deal of it beforehand. We're just doing this.
Exactly. Yes, they don't know that it means anything.
No.
But if they can't cope, then don't. It's not necessary. I mean, my boys still managed to get through their certificate to do.
So they did actually. So they got into the Cert 2 of General Education without doing NAPLAN.
Yep, they did. They did
awesome.
the Cert 1, which was the year 9 level.
So of course they don't need.
Cert 2 is the year 10 level, and then they can move on to Cert 3 is kind of year 11 level.
And then Cert
4 12, and then you can move into
diplomas and advanced diplomas and those as well. So there's lots of options, and as you said, there's lots of options for different ways to actually get into university as well, if that's where their life is taking them.
Yeah.
And I think it's just good to remember that there are still your options for apprenticeships, there's still your options for TAFE, there's still your options for uni. I guess one of the things that I always think is that actually I'm not necessarily teaching my child that skill. What I'm teaching them is how to learn.
That's right.
And if they've got that, then they're set.
It just comes naturally.
Yeah. So did you have you have spent a lot of time talking to parents who are homeschooling. What are some of the common fears that you hear from them?
I think it is probably the programming and how to show it to the moderator. Are they meeting the needs of the children?
Yeah.
That's mainly it. I suppose sometimes they probably would like just a mum time.
Yeah, this is true. Can we not learn for a minute and can we just hang out? Yeah.
Which does happen.
Yeah.
I know we went to Whiteman Park, and that was really nice to meet the mums and have a chat, and the kids are happy out there playing. And and that was nice. Yeah. And I think the boys, they learnt to be, free to go and explore.
Yeah.
And, it's just a nice, beautiful day, and you meet the other families and they're socialising, and also it's your time to, have a good chat with the other mums.
And I think that's really important as well, that it can be really isolating. When I was homeschooling, I was the only person that I knew that was homeschooling, because that's not what you hear is the mainstream way that you educate your child. So you send them to school. And I wasn't doing that. So when you don't know anybody else, you're kind of going, well, I've got nobody to bounce ideas off. I had my husband and my parents, they were all involved in my son's education, but you still feel like you're doing it yourself. And so it's so powerful to know that there are other parents out there, and they're so invested in this, but they want you to succeed as well. So I didn't find a single mum or dad that was guarded with information or anything. They were always so open to sharing information and being supportive, and supporting for the parents and supportive for the kids as well. So it's a great community.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed these past years. I mean, I really enjoyed play school when I had the boys when they were really young.
Yeah.
And then going to homeschooling, I felt like, oh, I'm back at
school. Yeah. Yeah.
Not quite, but yeah.
Close.
It was just nice, and being a part of the community. And I did help build one out where I was living before in the Swan Valley. And that was really nice. And, you also put out your own events. It doesn't always have to be the same old person organising it. So, put it out there, say, look, we're going to go to this park. If you're welcome to come and join us, go ahead. And also, I think I organised at that time the Allenbrook Sports Hub. Came on board at one stage. Yeah. And they opened up for Fridays sports. So we enjoyed that for a couple of years.
And like you said, there are so many different things that are happy to have homeschool activities there. That's right. There's different gymnastics places that are happy to, they normally only do it after school, but they're happy to open Wednesday morning or whatever and do a homeschool group, or swimming lessons for kids during so all of those things, people are more than happy to.
The Surf WA are on board at the moment too. They've opened that up for homeschoolers, and I think I recently saw someone post up teaching how to is it snorkel?
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so they're on the beach, you can do some snorkeling.
See, this is so cool because there's lots of things that I want to learn. So I'm like, oh, kids, let's go to
that way.
But I don't like snorkeling, but you never know. Let's give it a go. And I think, you wouldn't have those opportunities if your kids were doing those things in school.
Exactly,
yeah. Were there any parts of homeschooling that you just thought, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That didn't, that wasn't great?
Oh, I don't know, probably winter time, and you are kind of
a bit more homebound.
You are,
Yeah.
and you get a bit cabin craziness, maybe not exactly crazy, but yeah. And you're trying to work out, what can I bring in to do at home? You only can do so many puzzles. Also, probably that. Need to be a bit more inventive of what to do for winter times when you are stuck more.
Yeah, because a lot of the homeschool meetups, they do tend to be in parks and things like that. And then you're like, what's the weather going to be like Thursday morning? Where are we calling it? Are we going? Is anybody else going? Ground's going to be wet. Those types of things.
That's right. Yeah. But people find ways around it. Yeah.
And were there any parts of homeschooling that you thought, I wasn't expecting that, but that's a really positive outcome?
I can't really think. I mean, at one time we were doing archery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's where one of the boys really established some really firm friendships from there. I mean, he was about 13 at that age, and I suppose he was open to that more then.
Yeah.
So some really nice firm friendships happened, and also got along with their mums too.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Yeah. And if you were talking to parents who are thinking, so there's a lot of parents at the moment who are thinking about homeschooling and they're anxious about it and not sure whether or not they're knowledgeable enough or not sure, just not sure. What would you say to those parents?
Just to gain more confidence in yourself. Take it a step at a time, and as you said, it's trial and error. You do work out ways and what fits your child. And also reach out to others. There's so many people who have a lot of information that can help you get through some tough times, but that's life. You find ways, and definitely outsource other areas that you might think that you don't really necessarily have a strength in. Might be in some art areas.
Mine was 100% sport.
Yeah.
It's just not me. And it's not him either. So that was...
But you still got to try and get some sport.
Got to tick a box here, buddy. What are we going to do?
Lots of nature walking.
Yeah. Bike rides, skateboarding, all of those things. It counts, right?
It does, definitely.
Come outside, catch this ball. Right, write that down. Yeah,
it works. It does. I mean, they find their interests, which might be. One time we did indoor surfing. And, that was a lot of fun. And now lately, I mean, they're at tape now, but they're discovering music more.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of them wants an electric guitar, so.
Do you know what? Give me an electric guitar over a recorder any day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And so any final thoughts on? Oh, actually, one more question before I ask for final thoughts. So you're now sort of at the end of your homeschool journey.
I am. Yes.
If you could go back and do it again, would you do it again?
Yeah, definitely. I probably would have liked to have started earlier. I think I would have benefited a lot earlier. Only because their minds are so open.
Yeah.
Because I find probably a few years in schools that it kind of gets closed, the creative side of things. So yeah, definitely if you can get them at the young age, it is a lot easier.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting. I guess for me, I taught all of my kids to read before they started school because they wanted to. They've all been really interested in reading and that kind of stuff. Interested in knowing their numbers and basic adding and that sort of stuff. So, but still, for me, teaching them when they're in kindy, pre-primary, year 1, those foundation, that feels so scary. Whereas teaching them in year 8, 9, 10, 11, I feel much more solid there. I feel like, and somebody saying this as somebody who did homeschool for however long, so I know I shouldn't say this, but I feel like, well, maybe if the professionals can do the foundation stuff and then I'll just pick up after that. And I know that's wrong, but I still, even with my experience, I still think, oh yeah, but what if I stuff up for the foundation?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, was it over in Finland? they actually don't start the reading until they see if they're ready by 7 or 8.
Yeah.
A lot of them probably 8. Or before that is play.
Yeah.
And when I was training in childcare development, play was so emphasised. It was really, so important.
Yeah.
It is the foundation.
And look, I've turned 40 recently, and I still learn through play.
Yeah.
So I 100%, when I homeschool my kids or whenever I'm with my children, it's still learning through play, and they're 9, 15 and 16, almost 17 now. So I'm a huge believer in play-based learning, and that's one of the things that does make me so sad. When my eldest 2 were going through kindy, pre-primary and year 1, it was very much play-based learning. And when my youngest went through, they were trying to get rid of play-based learning.
I know, yeah.
I think, but it's so important. It's so crucial for so many different things developmentally, and
It is definitely. Even some of the old playground things that we used to play with, like the monkey bars.
Yeah.
Some of that's been removed, and they have found that type of way of moving your arms and strengthening it that way is really quite important for your development.
Well, it's incredibly, so your gross motor development, things like things like doing the monkey bars. This is my soapbox, so I'll have to get off it before I get on it, really. But so when I took my youngest to pre-kindy, every boy who was in that class was given a referral to an OT because they didn't have pincer grip and couldn't cut with scissors.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that tells me that developmentally most of the boys aren't ready for that yet. Not that they all needed to have an OT, but I'm not an OT, so I can't say that. But we know that when you do things like monkey bars, and when you're strengthening those muscles, when you're strengthening your fine motor skills, you can then work on when you're strengthening your gross motor skills, you can then work on your fine motor skills. So things like monkey bars, things like playing with Play-Doh, they're all really good for our fine motor skills of being able to have a pincer grip for holding a pencil and being able to use scissors. So those are some of the reasons that we need play-based learning. But also, we use play-based learning for side-by-side play, for interactive play. It's how we learn our relationships.
Exactly.
So
definitely.
It's devastating that we're getting rid of that. Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox now. There we go. I could feel myself getting heightened by that. But
yeah. So when the boys came to homeschooling, we were out and they're on their scooters, and they were doing a lot more physical exercising that they wouldn't normally do at school.
Yeah.
And it's more natural. And that's what we were doing way before the industrial era. Yeah. We're with our families, we're working all together, and we're learning our father skills. Of and what's happening around the home. And I think that was more natural. Yeah,
for us, I think that homeschool it made learning real. So we would do things like, for example, one of the projects that we had, my mum was running a Pioneer Day. So I said I would go and take photos of the kids in their Pioneer costumes and whatnot. But obviously I can't go with a modern day camera, can I? So my son's project was to turn my camera, to basically create a box that would make my camera look like an old-fashioned camera. So he had to research them, and then he had to find it out, and then he had to actually make the box that it went in. So he made a prototype, and then he made, the box. He had to do a budget for how much we were going to spend on materials and all of those things. So every single element of it ticked every single box that we needed for the curriculum. But with that, he then had to do things like working out circumference. But he had to work out a circumference because he needed to know that the hole he was making was going to be big enough for my camera lens to go through. Or he had to work out how much fabric I needed to wrap around the camera lens. So he had, maths had to be useful. It wasn't a concept that was in a book. It wasn't some lead pencil on paper. It was real, and it was tangible, and it was useful. And for me, that's the difference between sitting in a classroom or being outside with a jigsaw saw thing, making learning real.
Exactly. I think one time we met up with families by the riverside in Guildford, It's the Swan River still, but it's not as wide.
Yeah.
And I think that day we learnt was, David's sling for when, in the
Oh,
Bible.
yeah. David and Goliath, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like a regular sling. It's more like a string sling, but you have to weave the middle part where the rock is seated, and then you bring the two strings together and you swing it round and round, and then you you let it go, and it flings. So that's what we've got to do as a project. And also part of history. In a way, But it is a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, and that's it, exactly. It makes things fun.
Yeah.
So, and I hope the kids remember them. So,
well,
but if not, we do. We've got some great memories.
Take a photo for memory.
Yeah.
But it's also there for showing the moderator at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We do make some slings.
Yeah.
There, and also with that, it's up to you if you want the moderator to chat to your children or not as well. Because your children might not feel, it depends how old they are, how they feel comfortable with that or not.
Yeah.
So you can arrange to not necessarily meet at the house. You can also arrange to meet at the library or
coffee shop, park.
You can, I know another mum I came across, and she was quite adamant that her moderator wasn't going to meet her children. Yeah. So that was her choice. Yeah, definitely. Within her rights as well.
Yeah. And just with you saying, take a photo for the memories. So one of the things that one of the other mums that I was speaking to does for showing things to the moderator is she actually has a Facebook page that's a private Facebook page. She's the only person that goes on that, but she can take photos and she can upload them to Facebook with the different activities they've done or different, whatever it is, or write notes. So when the moderator wants to sit, she can show them that and go, well, scroll through different activities they've done, different projects. And, I think it can be relatively easy to, when I was doing project learning, to go, well, actually, these are the different things that this ticks off in these different ways. So keeping those notes just on a Facebook page, which you can do from your phone.
Yeah, definitely. You can do it that way. I found later, though, my moderator eventually said to me, I don't want to see so many photos.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I stuck to just a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that depends on who your moderator is, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, she did see an awful lot the first year, and she just realised that, okay, you're on the path.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing, so I don't need to see all your photos.
Yeah. Fair enough. All good. But don't you want to? Look at all the amazing things we've done. So before we wrap up today, have you got any final thoughts about homeschooling, the joys of it, the pitfalls, what people should look out for, what they can celebrate, any of those things?
I think it depends on the age of your children where they're at. Also, the younger years can be absolutely beautiful and fun, but as they grow older, their teenage years, it's going to be challenging again. So you really need to stop and rethink, and how am I going to get our goals still achieved, but also getting them on board. Yeah, they do really need to get on board more when they get older.
I actually think it's really useful to have them on board regardless of their age. And I think so one of the things that we did with our son was he got to choose his timetable. He got to be involved in all of those things. He got to choose what country we were going to study. He got to choose what project we were going to be working on. It was his schooling. He was invested. He got to captain the ship, really.
Exactly.
So he got to decide where we were driving, and I got to decide how we were going to get there.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I can definitely feel that when you've got teenagers involved, you may really need to make sure that you've got teenagers involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not going to work. You are first and foremost their mum.
That's right.
Or their dad, or their, whatever carer that is. But
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah, but I have enjoyed the past 5 years. But now the boys are, so they're almost reaching adulthood.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the boys, so they had the opportunity to go to school. It was their choice to homeschool, and their choice when they went to school to stop and come back to homeschooling.
Yeah,
so
that's always been open.
Yeah. So do you think the boys, if they were given a choice, do you think they would choose to homeschool? If they were given the opportunity to do it again. Sorry, to do it again. Yeah, not now, obviously.
Because I did open up to them. I said to them, especially after the first year, we're going back to school, and you want to be a part of that, and they were okay. They're on board. But I think they realised that they weren't really ready to get back into the school scene.
Yeah.
Things, because especially one of them was getting picked on.
Yeah.
Just misunderstood a lot. So he wanted to go back to homeschooling. So, and the other one, he ended up going to a year after to the high school, which he found, he enjoyed some of the teachers there and learning, but he did find that the bullying was just not on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a hard time with that. So, they chose to homeschool. But I think they were really glad for the opportunity to get into TAFE and move on from there.
Yeah.
And feel like, they're men now.
Yeah.
We're a man, so.
I think often people kind of think, well, when you talk about homeschoolers, people can get an idea around what homeschoolers look like. And there is no stereotypical homeschooler.
No.
And I think people have this idea that, well, if you're homeschooled, that you won't amount to anything. And I think that's just a load of rubbish as well.
It is.
So, there are homeschool people who I know well, they're not kids anymore, but, they're studying to be doctors. They've gone on and done apprenticeships and become electricians or, whatever it is. That homeschooling, it gave them the motivation to learn the way they want to. It gave them the knowledge that that there's different pathways for everything. And then they've just gone and achieved their goals and their dreams.
Yeah, there's no stopping them. I know one of my friends, I've got lots of friends, boys, he's actually moved on to agriculture school.
Cool.
Yeah, so he's taken off for that pathway, and he's actually younger than my son.
Yeah.
I think he's 15. So he's gone to do that, and he's really quite able to get into that and do really well with that, because he really loves the farming side of things. Yeah, so there's a lot of them have gone on to higher learning levels.
Yeah.
His sister actually would like to be a marine biologist, but at the moment she's learning about landscaping through TAFE, but she's going up that way to move into, I think, because that was one of the science areas that open into further studies. Yeah. But she's still quite young, so that's why she's still probably enjoying what she can learn through TAFE. Yeah. And then move on to, she's very capable to be able to do uni levels. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I don't think that whether you're homeschooled, whether you go to private school or public school, really, it doesn't make a difference.
No, it's the child in the end. Yeah. And what they have inside them and what their interests are, and are they motivated to do further studies?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, so thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts and experiences and everything that you experienced over the last 5 years of homeschooling. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing that, and hopefully there are some people who are perhaps sitting on the fence who may feel like, actually, I can do that after hearing this.
Yeah, you do have to pull yourself up, have that encouragement, and you will get there step at a time. Yeah. And there's lots of people out there to help.
That's exactly right. There are lots of people out there to help, and there's lots of different, whether that's Facebook groups or in-person meetups, or you mentioned Home Education WA, lots of people out there to help, and everybody who I met is more than happy to help.
Definitely, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of A Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. For more information on the services we offer, head to whws.org.au or Women's Health and Wellbeing Services on YouTube and social media. Looking forward to the next episode where we uncover the hidden world of women.